When I was an undergrad at Penn and I was studying psychopharmacology, I was studying the brain and drugs. I was very interested in learning as much as I could about how drugs affected behavior. But while I was an undergrad, a new drug came out that I'd never heard of, and it was in the magazines, and it turned out people were taking this drug called ecstasy, and they were dancing all night, and there was a push to make ecstasy illegal. And then all these psychiatrists and therapists started coming out of the woodwork and saying, actually, that party drug, I was giving it to my patients, and it was making our therapy sessions go deeper, and I was getting more work done with them, and it was really opening people up, and I was having very good therapeutic experiences. So they were using MDMA like a catalyst. You know, during the psychotherapy, the patient would be in this altered state where they were very trusting and relaxed and open, and they were able to really talk about their key issues. And get down to the places where they needed to get to have some real psychotherapeutic work done. You know, the thing about therapy is it takes years, and it's a lot of peeling away the layers of the onion to get down to the thing that you really need to get to. And people are very defended against the things they really need to work on or talk about. And with MDMA, the defenses are really down tremendously, and people are open and comfortable enough to really get to their core issues and to do some really serious work and make changes and to change behavior, which is really hard to do. I mean, good therapy takes years before people start to change their behavior. But with MDMA, it's like a catalyst. It was going much faster and more efficient, and you know, people were saying that's like a couple of years of therapy in a couple hours that you could really condense and get a lot of work done. So, you know, you'd think this would appeal to the insurance companies if nothing else, because they don't want to pay for years of therapy, right? Why not just pay for 1 or 2 sessions and then the person's all better?
One of the little narratives of the 1980s was those dastardly druggers were inventing chemicals that weren't yet illegal. And wasn't that a terrible thing? And some members of Congress got the idea of banning what they were calling designer drugs, new drugs that had not yet been invented. It was a very relatively unknown compound. DEA knew about it and proposed that it be scheduled. And some of the psychiatrists who were using it filed a petition under the law to schedule it in Schedule 3, where it would be scheduled like a legal drug that psychiatrists could use. And hearings actually started. Testimony was being gathered. And when we wrote the Emergency Scheduling Authority, this was for things that had not yet been, these were brand new things in our eyes. I was shocked that they used MDMA as the first thing. And I remember when they did it, it made, like, I think it made the cover of Time magazine, ecstasy. And it was as though they were intending to advertise it to young people around America. Hey, there's a new drug called ecstasy. That doesn't sound so bad. I mean, it was crazy. If they had allowed the Schedule 3 process to go into effect, MDMA would have been used in psychotherapy, and it would have been a controlled drug. It would have been sold by illegal manufacturers, and they wouldn't have promoted it in the same way. They promoted it. They guaranteed that every dope dealer, hey, you got any of that ecstasy stuff? I heard about ecstasy. Where can I get my hands on that ecstasy stuff? They created demand.
So what happened when the drug became illegal is that none of the therapists could work with it anymore. But it was still available underground. It was still being made. People were still taking it at raves. Raves got more and more popular. They really peaked in popularity after it became illegal. But it's very hard to do research on a Schedule 1 drug, and especially a drug like ecstasy that has so much sort of baggage and misperceptions about it. So unfortunately what happens is you get a lot of people using it. You get a lot of drug substitution because people aren't necessarily taking MDMA when they buy a tablet of ecstasy. And we don't know enough about it because we can't really do much research on it, and we can't use it therapeutically, which is how it was originally designed. What I kept hearing over and over again from these therapists is that the patients who were benefiting most from the MDMA-assisted psychotherapy were people who had post-traumatic stress disorder, people who'd been traumatized, people who'd been raped or who had had some sort of violent crime perpetrated against them, and especially people who had PTSD from wars. they're in really rough shape right now. And you know, one of the things that I'm involved in now is helping I'm the medical monitor of a study where they're giving MDMA in the context of psychotherapy to these veterans of the Iraq and Afghan war who've got post-traumatic stress disorder. The thing about PTSD is that, you know, when people have been traumatized, they really close down, and they're protecting themselves. And with therapy, you need to be opened up to really get the work done. And with post-traumatic stress disorder, you need to debrief. You need to talk about what happened. You need to talk about the trauma. And you need to forgive yourself or the universe or your aggressor in order to sort of pick up the pieces and move on with your life. And there's something about MDMA that really does seem to help people accept their present circumstances and accept the past and forgive and move on.
So are veterans now these outsiders whose constitutional rights are in some way interfering with our ordered society? That seems to raise some significant issues, considering they've developed these issues as a result of defending our country with their body. Now we're saying that they don't have a right to their body?
I had known about ibogaine for many, many years. This is the first time I ever heard it. It was probably 89 or 90 or something like that. I'm going way back, okay? While we had needles in our arms, he was telling me about this thing that he did called ibogaine. And he told me, it was the first time I heard the word ibogaine, iboga, or buiti, was when we were getting high. And he said that it was fucking amazing, that when he did it, he got like 6 months off of drugs. And you know, he fell back into it. Anyway, so this stuck with me. This was sort of like folklore of the Lower East Side, Dana Beale's work. And if we can call that work, we can call it work. Dana Beale was out there, you know, spreading the word. God bless him. I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for Dana's madness. So they told me about it, and it stuck with me, and I heard more about it. I started to pursue it, you know. I was turning 40, I was 39, and I just had it. I was really physically and emotionally, spiritually completely spent. And so, you know, through a lot of back and forth, I tried to sabotage it a few times, but we started the ball rolling, and my family somehow came up with the money, and my brother took me with me because they weren't going to give me $3,000 in cash to send me to Amsterdam. so he came with me. And because my plan was I was going to go to Amsterdam, and then from Amsterdam I was going to go to Greece, you know, clean, and then I was going to go home and die. You know, so I spent a month in Greece, and then I was going to go home and blow my brains out or whatever the hell I was going to do. So I got there and I took this. It was actually, I didn't take ibogaine. I took iboga extract actually, which is similar to ibogaine. It's the plant medicine, and it was really difficult, but it wasn't kicking methadone difficult. To give you an idea, kicking methadone is the hardest, and when I mean kicking, I mean withdrawing, is the hardest withdrawal you can imagine. It lasts for months. You know, it can last for months, you know? I've had enough of hiding underneath my covers. I'm done with all of that poop that brings me down, down, down. Don't bring me down, down, down. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'll laugh my whole way through the hurricanes and fire. That's why you don't want to bring me down. That's why you don't want to bring me down. But the amazing thing is, after going through this struggle for 2 days, I guess, I came out, and on the third day, you know, and this doesn't happen with everyone, but for me, I was just weeping with absolute joy, because when a drug, an opiate-dependent person in particular, goes and consumes the sacrament of iboga, and their withdrawals are either eliminated or greatly reduced, and they come out on the other side without the desire to use heroin. That, coupled with the euphoria that I was feeling just from the iboga, I mean, I was exhausted. I could barely walk, but I just kept on saying, praise God, praise God. And I had a renewed faith in God, and I had no desire to use, and I was just absolutely stunned. And while I sat there, I knew what was coming. I knew this would come. I knew I'd be sitting with something like this on me, and something like that would be pointing at me, and someone like you would be talking to me. You know, I knew this all was coming. I knew what was coming.
Tell us a bit about what happened.
Well, I just felt like I could do what I wanted. I didn't have anything hanging over me. I felt like I was free from the state's grasp, you know, and that's when I was into the heroin and coke before I went to jail, but this is when I really got into it, and because I thought I could do it and be functioning, and that didn't work out for, God, it took a week and that failed, you know, so I was just full-blown into it for a couple of years until I discovered iboga, which was what really saved me. I mean, again, I've tried every avenue of detox and rehab and pay this one to $30,000 and you'll be, you know, your kid will be clean. No, it just doesn't work. There's certain things that work and certain things that don't, and I've kind of been through them all, so I'm figuring them out slowly, but.
Man, I came back to Detroit. I didn't have anything, I didn't have a job, and I was going to save the world with iboga. You know, I still wanted to save people, which is, I don't even want to help people at this point, man, because I think those are both very dangerous things to try to do. Because the hierarchy, the power structure, taking the power away from an individual and saying, I'm here to help. I can walk with you. I can walk with you in solidarity. I can't help anything. And if you look, you know, we work on projects in Africa. We're trying to get a little project going with planting. I find myself saying it. I always try never to say, I'm here to help. I always tell them, I can't help you. It's a really bad history of folks going to Africa to help, you know? And I think that's a lot of this, the whole drug war thing. There's a really, look, man, the way prisons got set up, man, it's Quakers trying to help. You know, they were really well-intentioned people. They were trying to help. Look what happened. It became about power, and it became about knowing.
That's whenever I set out to try to figure out what else I'd been lied to about. Because learning that society had just ingrained this into me on this substance right here, I wanted to see what else it had ingrained into me. So I did some more research into psychedelics. I read some books like PiCal and TiCal. I looked up information on acid, on LSD, because a friend of mine had an experience with it. One of the main websites that I discovered was arrowwood.org. For those of you that don't know, arrowwood.org is a website where you can collect experience reports about people that try all of these substances. And then it also integrates these experience reports with peer-reviewed journal articles on these substances and dosage information on all of these substances. So that's whenever I decided to take the leap of faith and drop a tab of LSD. It was an amazing experience. I was 19 years old. I was actually in college at the time. It was an amazing experience. It changed my worldview completely. It brought to mind who I was as a person and how I related to the rest of society. For me, the best way that I could describe it was that it took all of this intelligence that I felt like I had and all of these insights that I felt like were just lying latent below the surface in my brain and helped me bring them out. So I developed more as a person, and then afterwards, you know, I'd always been told that you drop acid 6 times and you're clinically insane. Well, I'm not clinically insane. I'd like to believe I've got a good head on my shoulders. And furthermore, I believe that nothing has done better for me for my sanity than my experiences with psychedelics.
I remember something my mother said early on to me, which was, she basically said, you are a hypocrite. Like, you've been parading around all these years saying, you know, eat healthy, you know, exercise and do yoga and all these things, and when all this time you've been poisoning your mind. And I couldn't even possibly begin to have this conversation with her at that point. But what went through my mind was, like, using psychedelic drugs in a certain manner has been so beneficial to my spiritual evolution, and I don't know if she would ever understand that, and I let that one go.
What MAPS is doing, trying to change laws within the medical community, making MDMA a prescription medicine, making psilocybin a prescription medicine, making marijuana a prescription medicine, will ultimately change how Americans and others across the world view drugs.